Welcome back, chess lovers. Today we're diving into the Colle System, a powerful and underrated opening that can catch your opponents off guard, even in serious tournament games. It's simple to learn, easy to play, and incredibly dangerous if your opponent isn't prepared. In fact, with the right moves, you can win a full game in just 10 moves. Here is that you build this pyramid of pawns right in the middle of the board. After that, you place your pieces behind them in a natural setup. The simple beauty of this system is that you develop the same way no matter what black plays. At first glance, the setup looks modest, but it carries a clear and aggressive plan. Even strong players struggle against it, since accurate defense is hard to find. Essentially, this is the slave defense with colors reversed, a structure trusted by champions like Kasparov and Carlsen. And with the extra tempo as white, you gain all the benefits without the drawbacks. Your main goal is to break open the center with the pawn push to e4 and then launch your attack. Very often, you prepare this move by either placing your rook on the e-file or moving your queen to support the center. I'll show you both approaches. I actually like them both, and even switch between them depending on the game. For example, if you place your rook on e1 and your opponent tries something flexible, like pushing the pawn to b6 to develop the bishop to b7, you simply strike in the center with pawn to e4. And here's my big promise. As soon as you push the pawn to e4, your winning chances rise dramatically. Now, the interesting part is that the evaluation bar often doesn't fully recognize this shift, but in practical play, it is absolutely true. The very first threat you create with this move is the push pawn to e5. If your opponent makes any careless or passive move, you will simply advance the pawn, and suddenly one of black's minor pieces is under attack. That means black is forced to react immediately. In most cases, black will capture on e4 with the knight. This may look fine for them, but in fact, it helps you. When the knight takes on e4, your knight jumps forward, opening the diagonal for your light-squared bishop, a key attacking line. From this point onward, your opponent has to be extremely precise. If they make a casual move, say developing the bishop to b7, pushing the pawn to d4, or anything careless, you can basically win the game right away. For example, after knight to f6, you trade knights, and then suddenly your bishop goes to g5, pinning and capturing their queen. And you might be thinking, what if black simply recaptures my knight with a pawn? That's fine. You simply recapture with your pawn, and now you're attacking their knight again. Once they try to develop with bishop to b7, the danger only grows. And once again, your opponent is completely finished. That's exactly why I told you this system works even against strong players. Black's moves are so natural that it's very hard for them to suspect anything is wrong. But now comes the famous Greek gift sacrifice. You play bishop takes on h7, giving up the bishop. After that, the plan is simple. Knight jumps to g5, and then your queen comes to h5 with deadly threats, usually leading to a very quick checkmate. If the black king retreats, whether it goes back to g8 or h8, you simply swing your queen to the attack and checkmate them in just a couple of moves. If instead the king tries to be brave and steps forward, that doesn't work either, because here you have the brilliant move knight takes on f7. It looks like just a single move, but in reality, it combines three tactical ideas at once. It's a fork, it's also a discovered check from your bishop, and on top of that, it's a double check, since both your knight and your bishop are delivering check at the same time. The black king must respond, and no matter what they do, you will at least win their queen. Probably black's best try is to run forward to g6. At first glance, it looks like they might escape, since if you try immediate checks, they can try to block or run away, but here you calmly push pawn to h4, opening a new attacking front against the king, and the attack continues relentlessly. If black tries to stop your attack, you still have another powerful follow-up. Rook takes on e6. By doing this, you eliminate one of the main defenders of the king. After black recaptures with the pawn, you bring your queen to d3. Now notice the critical detail. Since black no longer has the pawn on f7, they cannot push it forward to create shelter. That means the black king is forced to move, and within just a couple of moves, the attack finishes decisively. I also want to show you another fascinating idea where white used the exact same Colle system setup. For example, rook to e1, queen to c7. What's remarkable here is that even Vidit Gujrathi, one of India's top grandmasters, was defeated very quickly by this concept. That alone shows you just how strong this opening really is. In this case, black used a slightly different setup, but it makes no difference. We simply execute the same plan. Push pawn to e4. After the trade in the center of the board, here comes the key point. Normally, in such positions, you are expected to recapture with the bishop, because bringing the rook into the center is considered risky. Your opponent might try to chase it around and gain time. But in this system, recapturing with the rook is actually a brilliant idea. You immediately set up the possibility of a rook lift to the king side, creating a direct attack. And once black continues with a natural move like knight to f6 or something similar, you simply follow through with the rook lift, swinging it across to join the assault on the king. And at this stage, black is basically finished. Objectively, you already have a solid advantage, and for black, finding the correct defensive moves is extremely difficult. After almost any move by black, you can play bishop to g5, immediately targeting the knight on f6. But notice, this knight cannot really move. If it does, you simply capture the pawn on h7, and the game ends almost instantly. If black tries to defend with pawn to h6, it doesn't help. You can exchange on f6, ruining their pawn structure, or even capture directly. You also have aggressive options like rook to g4 with check, or swinging your queen to d2 to join the attack. Either way, the pressure is overwhelming, and within a few moves, you'll finish the game, often by capturing a pawn and then delivering checkmate with the queen on h8. As I mentioned earlier, there is also a second attacking plan, and you can decide which one you prefer. I personally like to use both depending on the game. Instead of lifting the rook, you can bring your queen to e2. The idea is still the same. You want to support the central pawn break. After black develops their bishop or makes any ordinary move, you strike with pawn to e4. In most cases, black will capture on e4, but just like in the previous lines, as soon as you advance your central pawn, the opponent is already in serious trouble. Here's an interesting tactical point. If your opponent captures on d4, instead of automatically recapturing, you have a strong intermediate move, pawn to 5 euros. This hits the knight, forcing it to retreat. And once the knight moves, only then do you recapture on d4. The result is that you now have total central dominance, while black is left with a cramped and miserable position. At this point, black's pieces are completely stuck. You still have a strong attack with both bishops aiming at the king side, and your pressure only grows as the middle game unfolds. Usually, your opponent will try to break free by capturing on e4, but that actually helps you, because you advance your knight, opening the diagonal for your bishop, and suddenly the attack becomes deadly. There are two very common ways black can collapse instantly. If they trade on e4 and you recapture, you create a double attack, threatening checkmate and also targeting the knight on c6. Black will lose material right away. If instead they capture on d4, expecting you to recapture quietly, you trade knights and bring your queen to e4. Once again, you're threatening checkmate and picking up material on the queen side. Either way, the result is the same. Black is in huge trouble. And in the end, whether it's the knight, the rook, or some other piece, you're going to win material one way or another. That's the benefit of bringing your queen into the attack early. It strengthens and reinforces everything you're doing. Now let's ask, what if black tries to play correctly with bishop to b7, avoiding any captures on e4? After all, taking in the center only helps you activate your queen. Here too, you have a very powerful response. Instead of taking anything, you go straight for knight to g5, bringing another piece into the attack. This immediately creates a threat. Your plan is to capture on f6 and then take the pawn on h7, which would lead to a devastating attack. So if black plays a careless move, you simply exchange on f6 with check, then grab the h7 pawn, and the game ends quickly. That means black cannot allow this sequence. But here's the tricky part. If they try to kick your knight away with a pawn move, you don't retreat. Instead, you calmly exchange on f6, leaving them with yet another unpleasant problem to solve. This sequence starts with a check to the black king, forcing them to recapture. They're still hoping your knight will retreat, but instead, you calmly play queen to e4, threatening checkmate. Black must block with pawn to g6, but now you finally move the knight, capturing on e6 with a fork. Their position collapses instantly. After queen takes on g6, the game is essentially over. The king is exposed, and your bishop supports the ongoing attack. Next, queen to h7 continues the pressure. Even if it's not checkmate yet, the black king is dangerously exposed and has to guard against multiple threats. Moves like queen to g6 and bishop captures on h6 keep up relentless pressure. At this point, it's clear that black's position is collapsing and the game is practically won. Thanks for watching.